College football fans, welcome back to the College Ball Show. He's Marshall, I'm Chris, and we're here to discuss one of our favorite sports, especially during the regular season, college football. And oh, what a week we had in Week 14, Rivalry Week. Really paid off. I mean, on a local note, the Gophers went down. That sucks. It is what it is, but we had a variety of great games. And obviously the biggest one that stuck out was Auburn beating Alabama. That was big, and I didn't realize that they've never won in Auburn when Auburn's ranked. That's it's an interesting stat. It kind of makes sense. But 48-45, we were just talking about off air, talking about how flashback 5 to 7 years ago or something like that, and think that this rivalry in the SEC, the score is 48-45. Like, who would have thought that the shit would just turn into a Big 12 game out of nowhere? You know what I mean? We've documented, the LSU rise in offense, which is still shocking, but sometimes it's just strange, but you have to adapt with the times. And I do remember when, people were dogging Alabama's offense and they finally, went with a different style quarterback, a different system in general, really started recruiting not just one receiver, but a variety of them. And they've had a pretty damn good offense for quite some time. Auburn, normally known for offense, hasn't been the case this year, or, I'd say the last 2 years. But they got the job done, no doubt about it. Oklahoma beat Oklahoma State. They pretty much played very, very good. I'm really looking forward to that rematch in the Big 12 championship. Kansas State. Kansas State. That was a good game with, what do you know, Iowa State loses as a ranked team. That's been a theme all year long. So there's a variety of games that we will break down from Rivalry Week. And like I said, there's on the docket, dude. I mean, we got some interesting matchups. I mean, of course, the one that kind of stands out ranking-wise is LSU and Georgia. That's really not a big shocker. Cincinnati-Memphis is still interesting to me. Cincinnati could actually beat them this week. I think the spread was 11. They lost by 10. And then obviously Oklahoma and Baylor, just because of what happened in the first game. I'm still pretty shocked that happened. That'll be the Big 12 championship. And also Oregon and Utah. Utah just lingering there, and this might be another year where you go, okay, someone has an argument for a number 5, like a fifth in there. Like maybe 4 and 5 play each other to get that 4th spot, or maybe we go 6 and play, 3 and 6 and 4 and 5, whatever the case is. I don't think it's like TCU Baylor though, because Baylor, their freaking non-conference that year, this is like 4 or 5 years ago, was just horrendous, horrible. So they didn't really belong in there, but Utah just doesn't have a lot of quality wins, and it did hurt that Oregon dropped that game, 2 weeks ago or last week. Yeah, it was last week. So, lots to talk about, no doubt about it. We can kind of give our take on how things will shake out, in the top tier, in the new rankings and whatnot. But like I said, we'll definitely get down into this stuff. And, we on the College Ball Show, we talk college football. We talk, we preview, predict. We have recap segments, which you usually start with. And we also have a thing called Betting Lines Banter, where we'll go against the spread, upset of the week. Just kind of looking at certain take it to the window. That will happen, that type of thing. So we definitely talk gambling. And we do have, although we're not going to do it this week, last week was the last one, but we have a, that game of the week, the crafty, crappy pick of the week, where my co-host Marshall literally just throws a game at me, the worst game he can find on the docket, and I just got to pick it. And it's pretty fun going over the stadium names and the mascots and they generally all are just garbage on offense and defense. So it's fun fiddling through those stats and whatnot. But if this is your first time listening to the College Ball Show, you can listen to it right here live or archive on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. Take a little sip of water. Got something in my throat. But, Rope-A-Dope Radio, to listen to this show, is all over the place. You can, Apple Podcasts you can listen to it on, Player FM, Stitcher, Spreaker, all over the place. In fact, we're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network, which can be found on everywhere, including iHeartRadio. To find both of the platforms, you could use your Siri or Alexa through Spotify or TuneIn to find the College Ball Show under the Rope-A-Dope Radio podcast. In fact, why don't you head on over to the gruelingtruth.net right now. It's football, it's basketball, it's baseball, it's boxing, it's everything in between. They got a great sponsor over there, betnow.eu. That's betnow.eu with the promo code TGT, as in the Grueling Truth. One more thing. I was about to get right into the recap, but one more thing. If you're thinking about cutting the cord, or maybe you cut the cord and you're just not happy, you want just a small package of cable option, right? This might be the thing for you. I use it myself. AT&T TV Now, it's streaming cable. They do have a 7-day free trial. There's no annual contract, but the plans start as low as $50 a month. That's with HBO included. You can stream it anywhere, and the cloud DVR comes in clutch. Like I said, AT&T TV Now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my co-host, Marshall. What's going on, Marshall? How the hell are you on this hump day, Wednesday?
I'm pretty good. And, we did talk about Bama Auburn for a few minutes before the show, but I forgot to tell you, of course, a bet that didn't go my way. And this goes back to Thursday night. Not talking the Cowboys, not talking the Saints, not talking the Bears and Lions, talking about the Ole Miss versus Mississippi State Egg Bowl. Chris, I don't think I'll ever forget this game. It is now known, and I saw this on Twitter officially, as the Piss and Miss. And that's honestly such a perfectly elegant name.
I forgot all about this game, but I do remember it was on Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah.
Thanksgiving night. I do remember it.
So the whole week, every person, podcast, gambling I listened to was saying you got to take Ole Miss. They're a better team. And for the whole week, Mississippi State had been like a 2-point favorite. And, of course, when I go to bet the game Thanksgiving afternoon right before kickoff, Ole Miss is now the 2-point favorite. So the point spread swung essentially 5 points, going from 2 to even out to 2 in the other way. Anyways, back and forth game. Ole Miss had a lot of stupid turnovers. They've been going through 2 different quarterbacks. Anyways, they go on this, I think it was literally a 14-play drive. One of the plays with 50 seconds left, they convert a 4th and 24 for 50 yards. They get down to the red zone. There's the 4th and goal. There's a penalty, another penalty, so on and so on. What really hurt me was there was a play where Ole Miss got the Mississippi State to jump off sides. And normally whenever a quarterback in college or pro gets a team to jump off sides, it's a free play. Well, the officials blow the whistle for the unevaded run to the quarterback. There was no one within 10 freaking feet of the damn quarterback. He throws a touchdown pass and gets called back. About 3 plays later, 10 seconds to go, they throw a pass where the guy scores a touchdown. So Ole Miss is now down 1. There's 12 seconds left in the game. Kick the extra point, going overtime. Things are looking okay. I still have a chance to win my bet. But as the Ole Miss player caught the ball, he proceeds to toss the ball to the official or on the ground, walk like he is a dog into the end zone, to the back of the end zone, then pick up a leg like he's a dog pissing on a fire hydrant, directly in front of an official. Flag goes up in the air. I'm thinking, oh, shit. Maybe they'll tack it on to the kickoff. Nope. 15-yard penalty.
And didn't they say that at the start, and then they changed it? Didn't they say it was going to be on the kickoff, and they said, actually.
They did. They did, but obviously the rest were maybe had too much turkey that day. So, yes, they said it, but obviously it goes to the kickoff or the extra point. And in college football, Chris, there's never, ever a guaranteed field goal that's beyond maybe 23 yards or whatever. And he shanks the hell out of the field goal, and I lose my bet by 1 point. I mean, when the penalty got hit, I'm like, oh, man, I'm done. So such a beautiful, crazy 14-play drive, and then you have a guy pretend to piss like a dog, and it costs you your game. And he is their most offensively talented player. So I got to imagine it was a pretty lonesome night for your season end like that, because they were going to a bowl game anyways, and you are on the road against your in-state rival. That had to be a pretty somber evening for, I believe it's Dejan, something similar to that. I know the last name is Moore. So, yeah, that stuff sucked. But I progressed. I was able to make it to Saturday. I was able to suck it up and move on. And as we mentioned, Bama and Auburn. I was also a fool, and Chris, I picked the under. I was talking to some people for the game, and I was just telling you, okay, so Auburn's defense has been great this year. They contained LSU better than anyone in the country. They basically have contained every team they've played this year. Their defense has been rock solid, and they've had a really shitty quarterback. So I'm thinking, okay, Auburn's defense is going to hold Bama to 20 to 25 points, I think, around there. And Bama's got a young quarterback.
Which makes sense.
Excuse me. Yeah. And for the Auburn standpoint, Auburn had only scored like 20 points a game in a big game, 20 points or less. They'd really struggled because Bo Nix is just a young kid. And I'm like, okay, we got Nick Saban on defense. Obviously, he'll dial up a plan, and there's no way Bo Nix is going to kill Bama. And for the first quarter, I was pretty good. I think the score was 10-3. Getting into the middle of the second quarter, I'm thinking, okay, my under bet's looking pretty good, because some guys at the bar are telling me, dude, you got to take the over. The offense is too good. I'm like, nah, dude, I think the under is pretty safe. And then you had a span in 5 minutes and 45 seconds where they scored 28 points. There was a pick six, which was then countered by a kick return for 103 yards, and then a couple of big plays. I mean, the over-under was done after that miraculous run. But as we were saying, Chris, it was just such a weird game, because all the storylines you and I predicted, along with many other people, we're not the only people that knew Bo Nix wasn't that good. The game kind of just got flipped on its head for what we expected. Auburn's defense was really bad. Bo Nix looked really good. Bama's young quarterback in Mac, looked pretty good against Auburn's defense. Everything that we'd seen up until this year was kind of flipped on its head. And obviously, Auburn's able to hang on there for a win. I mean, there's so many different huge plays we could get to, but just for the overall review of the game, everything kind of went kind of opposite, or kind of flip-flopped. And I didn't really expect that, Chris. I know we're wrong at sometimes, but this game I was massively wrong in about every direction possible.
Well, I don't know about being wrong. I mean, come on. No, yeah, you're right. Like, I'm still shocked at that score. In Auburn or Alabama, like I said, when both teams are ranked in the AP, they moved to 0-7 under that, and just adding a little, pick it on Nick Saban. The last time Nick Saban and Bill Belichick lost in the same weekend was 8 years ago, November 6th and November 5th.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy, dude? That tells you some dominance there, huh?
The only thing, and we're going cross sport here for a little bit, the only thing that trumps that is the fact that in the past 12 years up until this year, Greg Popovich and the Spurs were under 500 for 60 days in 12 years.
Wow. That's crazy. I didn't know that.
I know.
That's crazy.
That's done this year, but 60 days under 500 in a 12-year span. Yeah.
And if you think about it, Duncan was in his prime maybe 4 of those years. You know what I mean? The rest, he wasn't in his prime at all.
Yeah. So yeah, that number is insane. But yeah, the football that's just as insane for the Belichick and Saban. And we were saying, I know it's one small part of the game, and obviously there was a huge pick six that went from Alabama throwing a touchdown pass in the third quarter. Right. That gets intercepted on the goal line, the 1 yard line, gets returned for a touchdown. That was a huge swing. Bama could have went up 7. But the play before half, we were saying, a really weird set of plays happened where Auburn was trying to get a quick score before half, and they somehow were able to, like, get a first down, and like the clock showed 1 second left. But as the player went down, like it's like the officials kind of gave Auburn this extra time. It was a really weird situation of plays, and even Saban, when he got interviewed at halftime, was like, "Look, it takes 3 seconds to spike a ball, and we saw there was 1 second left on the clock, and the referees grant them 1 second to go." And then a really weird play happens where the referee blows the whistle to start the play of the clock. And in a half a second, the Auburn guy snaps the ball for a field goal and they score. It was kind of like a lucky 3 points for Auburn. And I know it's on the first half, but looking down at the end of the game, it was a 3-point final score. I'm not quite sure we'll ever see that again. I think the officials admit they screwed up. But Chris, even if it goes from 7-4, it's still a little momentum that obviously did Bama no help, and just a weird set of plays that kind of gave Auburn maybe a little extra boost, and obviously closer to the Bama on the scoreboard.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely helped, and it didn't, the way, like you said, the way that second half fumble, they score a touchdown, pick six, it was crazy. And yeah, but when you look at this Bama, like, outplayed them, dude. They put 335 up passing compared to 173. They both had about $180 rushing, 35-24 for time of possession. Both of them turned the ball over. Only one for Auburn. That's about the only thing that they didn't get. They got outplayed, but as we know, that's what is that stat about the Bama kicker under Saban?
Oh, that in the past 10 years, Alabama leads the SEC in missed field goals, I believe, or however many. It's with 101 misses. They have the most missed field goals of any team in the SEC. And that's something my buddies always joked with me about. It's like, well, Saban doesn't give a shit about recruiting a kicker. And
right.
Probably not that he doesn't care, but that's definitely maybe not on the top of his priority, because that has been an issue for a long time, that Saban's never had a great kicker. And it's normally never come back to hurt them because they're such a good team. They make up for a missed field goal here and there. But in a situation like this where that kid kicked, I believe, was a 34-yard field goal. I mean, even in college, you got to feel at least that's an 80% chance that's going in. But from an angle, puts a little added pressure to miss that kick, man. That's in a rivalry game. The haunting stats of Saban not having great kickers, that thing came back to bite him, Chris.
Yeah, it really does, dude. And we were talking off air again about this subject, and it's kind of like, I guess you don't realize it because they have so many blowouts and they're just so dominant, and you just think, whatever, I don't know. But then when you really think about it, you go, yeah, actually, I suppose, I suppose that is something that is starting to add up in general. And speaking of adding up, Ohio State smacks around Michigan again for the eighth straight time. They've now scored 30-plus points.
Oh, Lord.
In 7 straight games against Michigan. And in fact, Ohio State is now responsible for 3 out of the 4 highest scoring games versus Michigan under Jim Harbaugh. The Buckeyes are the first team to score 50 points in consecutive meetings in the history of the series. And as we know, it's been a hell of a series. So basically the last 10 games, the last 10 years, 10 games, I suppose. They've won once. Michigan won back in 2011. And that's it. That's it, folks. They just beat their ass. There was a couple of mental mistakes early in the game when the game was still relevant. And you could say, well, maybe they'd only lose by 13 points at that time, if they would have not done that or something. But other than that, you can't really, it's just those things, they add up over a game and over a rivalry and all that, but that has nothing to do with the final score. And both teams put up, passing numbers, but 264 on the ground to 91. And we know Michigan likes to run the ball, obviously. 50 rushing attempts. And usually when you're up in the 50s, it's just, the other team's going to catch up to it, and your yards per, the average yards per run is going to go down. Not the case here. 5.3. I mean, this is getting beyond, I'd say it's getting ugly, but I think we've passed that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the first half was close, but even at the end of the first half, Michigan, I believe they just were able to fail on the fourth down, and Ohio State scores right before half. So I don't know. I think it was Ohio State's quarterback, one of their wide receivers, but a reporter asked him after the game, and he's like, "What's the difference?" And this guy, I don't believe he was talking shit. He was just being honest. And he's like, "I think the difference is, I think we just prepare more as a team the whole year." He's like, I know some of the Michigan players, and he was like, at Ohio State, we're in the weight room in every summer. We're preparing for this game in different ways. Like, it just made it sound like the preparation and program that Ohio State has is just a more well-run program. And they're more just, they're developing football players at a better pace. And I get
because both of them recruit well. You know what I mean? Harbaugh's recruited plenty there,
Oh, absolutely. I don't think there's, just from of running a combine, a combine, I don't think there's a huge difference of skill sets, but the preparation and maybe what goes into the off season, what goes into the summer, and the execution, I think that really is the big difference, and I'll give credit
to the scheme. I mean, the scheme, it does seem dated now, without Andrew Luck and without Cap, it seems like it's dated. You know what I mean? It just doesn't – I don't know. I don't know, man. Something's going on.
Yeah, and just, I was having another conversation. I was enjoying myself that Saturday.
It sounds like it.
And, our conversation was, if they fire Harbaugh, who do they bring in? That's better. That is a fair point.
Yeah.
That guy has, okay, you got to admit that Ohio State's kicked his ass, but I think Ohio State would kick about everyone's ass unless you're named Clemson or Bama. Even this year, they'd probably be Bama. I get that you want to beat your rival, but if you fire Jim Harbaugh, and I love like Norvell from Memphis or Matt Campbell from Iowa State, but are Norvell and Campbell going to bring in what Harbaugh's done right away? Now, I think that Norvell and Campbell are tremendous coaches, but they don't have the name and the pedigree. So you're probably taking a step back for a little bit as those guys kind of get their regime in. So I'm not sure who the best candidate is if you want to let Harbaugh go. I know it sucks to keep losing games, but it kind of goes back to the Les Miles factor. Les Miles kept winning you 9 to 10 games at LSU. Now I know that.
Well, he got a chip too. He got a championship, so that helps.
Yeah, true. You're right. You're right. That's fair. And I know that Coach O now has been great, but if you fire Harbaugh, who are you going to bring into Michigan with his pedigree that is going to make the fan base happy? And I don't know what the answer is there.
Don't you fucking dare say it either.
No, I'm not saying that. But
because they got $10 million to throw around too at Michigan. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
no problem.
They do.
No, you're right though, because look at the last, since the 2000s. They haven't had this great run or whatever. They've had some good teams in there, but he has gotten to that 9, 10, and 11 game, winning thing for a while now. So,
yeah.
And it sounds like they're not going to fire him.
No,
but
I don't
say
think
that until there might wonder if someone came loose, like someone contacted them, then maybe they would. But I don't know. I agree though. It has to be someone a big step up. And how many are there? 6 to 8 coaches in the whole country that are better than maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Bob Stoops is going there. I mean, you could say that name's maybe on the same level of coaching pedigree, but I've heard nothing. I know that Bob Stoops turned down the Florida State job.
Yeah.
I don't think he's picked on Michigan.
You know who they got to get. Your favorite coach in the whole country, Urban frickin' Meyer. Could you imagine if they got him though? Ohio State would be like, seriously, dude? Seriously? Yeah, but that's
Well,
not happening.
the man has no morals, so I would put nothing past him. Um, to transition though to unless you have any more points.
I mean, we can sit there and dog Michigan more,
Sure.
but I'm good.
Okay. To go to a rivalry, and it is a fair point because one of my good buddies keeps saying, "Can you call it a rivalry if a team never wins?" And this has not been a rivalry for 15 years, but the Virginia Tech, the UVA Cavaliers, the Wahoos, whatever the hell they call themselves, the basketball team that scores 40 points a game and wins. The Virginia Cavaliers.
Dude, but they held someone to 28 like a week ago.
Jesus,
28 fucking points, and that's not the first time they've held people under 30.
I don't. Yeah, I think they beat Maine like 44-26. The fact that that's a basketball score is mind blowing. That Purdue smacked their ass tonight, but they got smoked. That wasn't even a game. But for football, Va-Tech had beat Virginia 15 games in a row. That streak finally ended. I can't imagine the partying that occurred in Virginia that night. Virginia and Virginia Tech, they both have been great teams this year. Va-Tech was expected to be pretty garbage this year, but I think that Fuente is a hell of a coach. They had a nice season. Virginia, obviously, with their quarterback, had a great season too. The game was back and forth. Virginia was up 13-6 at half. Va-Tech scores 21 in the third quarter to take the lead. Then Virginia answers with 19 in the fourth, with about, I want to say, probably a minute or so to go. Virginia Tech was on offense trying to make run down the field to score, but they fumbled the ball in their end zone. Virginia falls on it. Pretty much that wraps it up. So I know that it's not much rivalry if one team always wins, but to give Virginia credit to get off the hump, you win your side of the ACC. Now you get to go play Clemson as a 29 point dog.
Now you get to go get smoked. But you know what? I was literally going to bring that up too. I was going to bring that up because I got I screenshot a tweet, and it was 16 years to the day, November 29, 2003, dude. That's freaking crazy.
Yeah,
that's nuts, man. Good for them.
Yeah, and you know, I doubt many people. I know that people believe in their quarterback, but I doubt many people had Virginia winning their part of the ACC this year. So yeah, that was a hell of a win.
Yeah, that was a good game too. 39-30. That was a good game.
You're right. Just to take a quick shot, because I can give two craps about this team, as we know, Texas. They beat Texas Tech, but I loved their quarterback said quote for quote, "We went 7-5 this year." That's basically said 7-5 is not too bad of a year. So look at what we have. Sam Ellinger said 7-5 isn't too bad of a year.
That shit don't play in Texas, dude.
But then Herman fired over 70% of his staff. So quarterback says, dude, 7-5, we're okay. That ain't too bad of a year. And he fired.
We're going to a bowl game.
He fired 3 coordinators on offense and a couple of guys on D. I'm happy to see them struggle. But as I've heard on ESPN, I forget who said, but to be fair, I think if Herman has a down year again next year, he's gone. You know, I know Charlie Strong got kicked out of there, and whether it was for maybe some racial reasons or maybe he wasn't a good coach or a combination of a whole lot of stuff, you know, he didn't last there. And you bring in the savior of Herman. But again, man, for all the credit he gets as being this great underdog coach and being the guy that's going to bring back Texas, dude, you went 7-5 this year. I know the quarterback maybe is not going to trash his team after a game, and I get that it's not his room to maybe say something awful, but I mean,
but you got to know 7-5 is not a good fucking record for Texas.
No, and Tom Herman's
damn Gophers anymore. You know,
no. So I think he is kind of on the hot seat. Like, dude, your time is pretty much running up. If you have another 7-5 year, again, I'm not sure who they bring in. They kind of have the same pedigree as Michigan, where you have to get a Harbaugh Meyer kind of guy. But I'm happy to see him suffer. But man, at 7-5, oh well, times are hard, Texas. Go play a bowl game and lose. So that's that.
There you go. And there was a ton of blowouts. Inside the top 25, we did get Iowa barely sneaking by Nebraska 27-24. I mentioned that Memphis.
No bowl game for them.
Yep, no bowl game. That's the third year in a row now, too. they definitely need a good year next year. To start to show that the wheels are turning. You know what I mean? Memphis and Cincinnati, it is one of those weird things where Memphis won the AAC for the third straight year, but they can lose it in the conference final. It was 34-24. I mentioned the spread was at 11. I did think they could sneak under 11, and sure enough, they did. Boise State, who's been just kind of trucking along, they beat Colorado State 31-24. That was actually a really tight game down the stretch. There was a couple other games that were competitive. Well, Oregon State actually played Oregon pretty well. That was a 19-point spread too, I think, or 17, and they snuck under at 24-10. Oregon State actually is pretty competitive this year compared to what they've been at. We've documented that once in a while. And then, like I mentioned, once Iowa State gets ranked, you might as well just pick against them because Kansas State ended their ranking, and now they ended 8-4, good solid season. So yeah, there wasn't a ton of great games per se, but the ones that were pretty important as well. Obviously, on the home front, the Gophers came out ready to go. They got that long touchdown on the double move to Bateman, up 7-zip. And even at half, it wasn't out of hand. And 7 minutes left or 8 minutes left of the third, it was 17-10. But between the Vikings last night or 2 nights ago and the rest of the third quarter was just a jinx for Minnesota football because Wisconsin just did what Wisconsin does. And they you could tell the offensive line and the defensive line in both Iowa and especially the Wisconsin game, though, that's where they still need a little bit of time to get going. Speaking of the Gophers, and they actually have their top 6 offensive linemen back. So that that unit has gotten probably 17 or 18 starts, mostly together. It didn't help having Falele, that 6'8", 400-pound dude. That'd have been nice to run behind him a little bit because they just couldn't get their running game going. We talked about the frickin', the weather, 37 degrees. We knew that wasn't going to be snow. It was going to be sleet. It was going to be windy, and they ran the ball, which set up their pass game. They made some big plays, and that was about it. Wisconsin just on both sides of the ball, you could really see the push up front wasn't there, in that game. But like I said, a lot of their offense comes back. The quarterback has 2 more years eligibility. So things are going on the up and up, but it still hurts to have a chance to go to the Rose Bowl, something that hasn't been done since 1962. And, January 1st bowl game, I'll take it. But yeah, that was a little bit of a heartbreaker. I did pick against them, but I actually thought it would go under that 38-17. I thought it'd go under. It went way over. Any other games that you'd like to talk about, before we start to look at, the conference championship matchups? Because there's a couple of them that really stand out.
Yeah, just to get into a horrific way to lose a bet. Now, this wasn't me, but I do love how, Van Pelt always does the bad beats on Tuesday night with him and Stanford Steve on ESPN. You want to talk about a bad beat. If you bet the under in Wake Forest and Syracuse, okay, Syracuse had kicked a field goal in overtime, Chris, to make the score 39-33. Or, excuse me, 33-30. So, they're at that's at 63 points. I think the over was like 68. So you just can't have a 5-point play. So Syracuse kicks a field goal in overtime. If you hold them to get an interception or a big play, you're going to win. Okay. Syracuse picks off the ball in overtime. So game's over. Guy houses it. Could you imagine if if you have the undercard, you're like, okay, interception, game over. Dude runs it back 90 yards to the house. The game goes over by a point, ball game. in your lifetime as a college football fan, have you ever seen a team run an interception or fumble back in overtime that you can recall? Because I honestly can't recall. I'm not saying it's never happened, but I've never physically seen one. Have you?
I feel like I have. I just can't remember it.
Maybe
But
once
it's
or
super
twice
rare.
total. Yeah. So just from a gambling standpoint, man, if you lose a bet on an overtime pick six when the game, all the guy had to do was fall or trip over.
Yeah. All he had to do is just, that is crazy.
Yeah, all he had to do was slide down. The game was over.
Right.
Unless I guess he could have fumbled the ball.
Right.
And they could have stripped him, but no, he housed it.
Right. He's like, I'm taking this to the house, man. You only get opportunities once in a while. We're going to the house with it.
True. I can't believe that crap. Just kind of scrolling through the games to wrap up here. Tennessee won 7 games this year. I know they're still not a powerhouse in the SEC at all, but for a team that
Gophers might face them.
For a team that gave up essentially a Hail Mary to BYU and blew a game and people were calling for Pruitt's head right away, you won 7 games this year. That's not too bad for Tennessee football. Besides that, and I next year, Chris, every time we do a podcast, I'm going to write down what I say on the show. Because my quote was, you should look at Ben the Tar Heels because if they win, they're bowl eligible. They won 41-10. That playing for a bowl game motivation really kicked in because they whooped NC State. It wasn't even a ball game. Well, NC State was up 10-6, and then Mac Brown, I think, danced a little jig at halftime like him and Roy Williams. The white coaches for Carolina like to dance.
Right.
And he got the boys going, and they outscored North Carolina State in the second half, 35-0. So credit to the Tar Heels. I'm only a basketball fan. I won't say I'm a football fan, but happy to see him do well. That was quite a win. And hey, for Mac Brown, no one's expecting.
I like Mac Brown.
Yeah, no one's expecting him to win a title, but to go 6-6 your first year at Carolina for a team that had a coach before that kind of got the program into trouble and just kind of things weren't looking too hot, that's not a bad year at all. Yeah,
no, I like him. I remember him the first time in North Carolina. He got Julius Peppers to go there, and he started recruiting. I could tell this dude was going to be on the move. It was like, oh, he's going someplace. And sure enough, I definitely. We didn't know each other then, but I was on Texas side that night with the USC game. But I liked Vince Young a lot. And I liked Mac Brown. I was like, all right, dude, this dude, And it had been a while since Texas was even relevant, too. So, yeah, good for him. It's nice to see some of these older coaches, be like, hey, I can still fucking coach. You know what I mean? I'm still here. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Anything else that you? Good.
For side news, as I predicted, Mizzou fired Barry Odom. I'd seen that one coming. He was known as a defensive guy, and he never had a great defense. And again, I know that when Pinkel left, it wasn't expected due to health conditions, but Odom had his time there, and he was successful his first year with Pinkel's guys, but he just never really put together a great season, unfortunately. So fair is fair. And I expected Clay Helton to get fired, but by the grace of God today, and somehow they re-signed him again. I'm not sure why. I know the guy's not a garbage trash coach. He's not shit. But what is the ceiling for Clay Helton? Okay, you had Sam Darnold take you to a Rose Bowl, but besides that, the guy really is an on average 8-win coach, and I don't see how that can be sufficient for USC standards. I don't know why they kept him. I'm really surprised with all the links of maybe going to bring in Meyer, look at Franklin. Not that I like those guys, but the media hype seemed to be Helton's gone.
Right.
And now you keep him for another year with a coach that I don't see him potentially. I think the Gophers have a higher ceiling with PJ Fleck than we do with Helton. We're going to win 7-8 games a year. I'm not asking.
Besides that one year where they won 11 and won the Pac-12, but besides that.
Well, he had his one great year with Sam Darnold. I'll give him that, but he also had a tremendous quarterback for a college, kid. So I don't know. I really thought he'd be fired. I still think we need a guy that can take us to a higher level. Well, you brought in a good recruiting class, and you must have impressed the new AD, and they kept him. But I think it's a 1-year deal. I'm not sure. I think it's still probably a little bit on thin ice, but we'll see.
Maybe he's got some dirt on more USC, like athletics or something. Where they're just like, hey, you keeping me? Trust me, you're going to keep me.
I don't know. Something. Nonetheless, he's still our coach again for another year. So, yeah. Another 8-win year coming up for USC. Hoorah!
Hey man, 8 wins is a lot of wins. Number 2. All right, so let's get to the conference championships. We're not going to go over every single solitary one, but a couple of them really stand out
and are very important for the Final Four.
Yeah, really important. And we'll kind of we'll go over this and then kind of talk that through a little bit too, as far as the top tier there in the new rankings. But number 2, LSU, which I still think they should be number 1 based off their schedule, but whatever. And maybe they're looking at the defense or whatever. I guess I don't know, but they just played a hard ass schedule. But anyway, number 2 LSU versus number 4 Georgia. Georgia has just been getting the job done. They had a very competitive game, with Texas A&M 2 weeks ago. They had that game 21-14. Kind of misleading though with Auburn. The big win was Florida for that side. They basically had control of the east side in the SEC since that. That was November 2nd, that 24-17. They did drop one to the Gamecocks, 20-17, beat Notre Dame earlier this year as well. They have experience. They got a pretty damn good defense. We know Swift and company they love to run from. You can say whatever you want about him, but the guy, he's actually got a damn good record against top 10 teams. I think if they were to win, I think it'd be his 4th win against a top 10 team. I'm not sure. How do you see this one playing out? And do you think, Georgia needs this to stay in the realm, or do you think because, they have such a strengthened schedule compared to, say, a Utah, if Utah obviously can go over there, or even Oklahoma, now that we're on on the subject, why don't we just kind of play through this, actually, instead of just separately going over the rankings, since we're talking about it anyway? First of all, how do you see the game breaking down? I think it'll be a fairly high-scoring game. I would probably go over the 54.5, but I could see, with Swift running the ball, maybe slowing it down, they're obviously going to need to keep the juggernaut of the LSU offense off the field. So they're definitely going to have to run the damn ball. And to be fair, that defense, they've played a lot of good teams, but they are giving up 22 points a game. They are giving up $124 in rushing per game. LSU, I'm speaking of. Is this one going to be a competitive, really close game all the way, where in the last, let's say, 5 minutes, the game's still on the table? LSU hasn't had a ton of those this year. Or, do you think that LSU's just going to keep doing what they've been doing and it's going to be 40-31 or something like that? And then, so give your take on that prediction. And then also, let's say Georgia loses. Can they still linger, being the fact that they got some quality wins, Notre Dame, Florida, Auburn, but they also have a non-ranked, pretty mediocre loss in there to go along with the quality loss? 2-part question. I don't mean to throw you off, and add too much on your plate, but it's a 2-part question.
I think to answer the second part, I think if they lose, that it opens the door for either Utah, Bama, or not Utah, Baylor, or Oklahoma. If Utah beats Oregon, I think Utah slips in. If Georgia loses, Utah loses, I think the winner of Oklahoma or Baylor sneak in. And I just think just the number 2.
So Baylor has the worst or the best loss, right? Yeah, Baylor has the best loss right now with Oklahoma.
They do, but I still think Utah, because Utah's playing Friday. If Utah wins Friday night, then and Georgia loses, I think Utah's a guaranteed lock in. Just because it's how the committee has it now, and if Utah's been ahead of them for now, I don't see how that could possibly change. Not that the committee doesn't do crazy stuff, but it would be really out of mind for Utah to win, Georgia lose, and then Utah gets skipped by Oklahoma and Baylor.
And they've been disrespecting Baylor for a while, too. Or not disrespecting, but, they haven't been. Yeah. Remember, the Gophers and them were outside of the top 10 for a while, undefeated.
Well, yeah, you would, in my opinion, you would lose all the credibility of what you've been doing so far if Baylor were to hop up after they haven't really been near Utah at all. And same thing for Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not surpassed Utah at all, so it would be really weird for them to do it now. Now for the game itself, I do think that situation occurs where Georgia does lose. I will say, to give Georgia credit though, they have a little bit of routine. Okay, if not for a massively dumbass fake field goal decision last year, they probably beat Bama. I mean, was it the field goal or the punt?
Yeah. Was it? Oh, it was a punt. It was a punt. Yeah, they went for a punt fake on some bullshit on like 4th and a while, like I think over 10 or something, wasn't it?
I mean, if you want to look up a hideous play call, just go Google the SEC championship game from last year, and that fake punt decision was just awful. Just hideous. And that basically, it cost them the game. So I do think if Georgia can play with Bama from the past couple of years in an SEC title game, I think maybe the familiarity of it, Chris, is a good thing. Obviously, Kirby Smart gets them ready to go for that. But you're going to have to slow down an offense that is just as good as what you faced last year in Bama, or maybe even better, just with the health of the quarterbacks. So I don't think Georgia's able to hang with them. I think Georgia's defense is good. I think they'll maybe give LSU some problems, but I think LSU outscores Georgia. Now,
4th and 11, just so you know, it was 4th and 11.
God, it was a
and you could tell it was going to happen too. The way if you look at the play call, it's like, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Bam was not confused. Bam was not confused at all.
I mean, they had Swift as the punter. No, I'm just kidding. That would be a giveaway.
So I do think, Chris, that Georgia is able to run the ball down LSU's throat. LSU this year has struggled on defense against, offense in general, but the defense has always stepped up in the second half. The Florida game, Florida did good in the first half. LSU stepped it up later. In the Auburn game, LSU played, not that Bo Nix is great, but, the LSU's defense held up, in the fourth quarter. LSU's defense has done just enough in the second half of most games to let their offense carry them. So I would say they progressed this year. So I think that's the same situation. But I think if Georgia runs the ball like they like to do and keeps Burrow off the field, I think they'll hang in there. But I still think LSU gets it done, sir.
I do think it'll be not down to the wire per se, but on the table. I see it as a close game. I really do. But I think it'll go over, and I do see LSU winning. And the thing about here's the only problem with Utah. So your best win is going to be Oregon. Okay. They got a quality loss because USC is going to remain ranked, right? So they got a good loss. It's not the greatest loss, but it's not bad. And but the thing is, so you beat Oregon. Okay, Oregon lost to Auburn. So that's your best win is Oregon. What's your second best win then? You know what I mean? That's the only thing about Utah. But, like you said, I think that they respect a couple of those teams in the Pac-12 to keep them up there. But when you look at it, you go, now that the dust is settled, who is really good in the Pac-12? Beyond that. So I don't know. But you're right. I think it does come down to where they've ranked them. And I think I think case in point with Baylor, let's just say in general, we talked about how Minnesota and Baylor took a while to get up there, right, in the top 10. But look at what they fucking did to the Gophers for, getting spanked in the second half. They dropped them 10 fucking spots. So it really tells you how much respect they really had. They were like, man, fuck your other games in your non-conference. And rightfully so. But I think that kind of lets you in on this is what you can always kind of tell which each committee. Maybe it's frustrating that it's not every year it's a tad different, but I think it should be a little bit different every year because you got to go, yeah, but that stands out more because it's not just strength of schedule. It's this, it's that, and the other. But then again, then you go, well, Baylor, their best win would be Oklahoma. Okay, well, is Oregon and Oklahoma? I mean, is that big of a difference? I mean, yeah, I guess you could say the last 3 to 5 years as far as, a program. Oklahoma definitely better in the last 3 years, but we're not talking about 3 years. So I don't know. It's a pretty good debate, and the more this stuff happens, it does kind of feel like, remember TCU and Baylor? How that's when they didn't have a conference final, but how I was like, TCU can come in, but fuck Baylor because their non-conference was just horrendous. So I am starting to think now if enough of these happen that we could bring in the 5th and potentially a 6th. I don't want to go 8. I think 8 is just worthless, to be honest with you. It takes away from the regular season. The non-conference is the national. There's a bunch of national quarterfinals that happen throughout the year. You have the non-conference, you have your conference, and now you have to play the best teams in your conference regardless. Even if you don't play them during the year, you're going to play them in the conference finals. So you've already gone through all this stuff. And college football, the beauty of it is you're going to play your rival next year, dude. You could be in this same situation. You just got to beat them. And I like how if you beat this team that you're going to be the one that's going to be in that the semifinals. That's the whole point of the regular season being the best. And so I do think 8 ruins that. It's a money grab at that point. But I'm okay, and I've said this now for a couple of years, the 5th or the 6th. Maybe the 4th and 5th, because that's kind of what the debate has been. 4th and 5th before in the past, like Central Florida, right? Like, okay, let's let 4 and 5 play then. We'll find out who the fucking best team is. Okay, or maybe the 6th with the 3 and the 6 and 4 and the 5. Number 6 Oklahoma versus number 7 Baylor. According to ESPN's Football Power Index, we haven't used that in a couple of weeks. Got to get back to it. Sorry about that, Marshall. I know that you live and die by this stat. 69.4. No ties here. 69.4% that they think Jalen Hurts and company, or should I just say Jalen Hurts? Because there's not too much company with his ass. Obviously we know the wide receiver, but of course we're talking about running backs. They are a 9-point favorite in this game, Oklahoma is. For quite some time now, their defense has been pretty bad. They did look good against Oklahoma State. How good is Oklahoma State? I don't know. But they handled them on the road, 34-16. But before that, they had been living on the edge against TCU, against Baylor, against Iowa State, winning 42-41 and losing 48-41. I think Baylor can beat them, but it's one of those games where you go, it's in AT&T Stadium, so there's no super huge, obviously the Sooners are going to have more fans there. But is it, it's hard not to think how that game was going, though. You know what I mean? It's really hard not to think back at that Baylor-Oklahoma game from a couple weeks ago. They're down 28-3. Could Baylor come out and just be up 14 at half and this time just run away with it? You know what I mean? You can only live on the edge so much. I'm picking Oklahoma but I'm not as confident just because of that first game. Like they've proven right there that they can put it on Oklahoma. It's obviously not that hard to put them on their defense. The defense sucks again. So I don't know, man. Maybe I'm just making more of it. Maybe that was just such a fluky thing. But there's got to be something to a 28-3 lead, dude.
Yeah, I guess it's just a tale of which team are we going to see? You know, are we going to see the Oklahoma offense that's unstoppable, or the Baylor defense that was, pitching a shutout? I think with the tale of the two halves, I think in my mind, you look at the most recent, which was Oklahoma have momentum and everything else just going their way. And I think that carries over into the game. I think they're obviously the more experienced team. They've been in this game before. I'm not going to say they have head coach advantage, because I honestly think that Rule's just as good of a coach, maybe even better, honestly. I know many people probably would say Riley, but if you look at what strictly the coach has done, Rule's probably the better coach. But I just think the momentum from how that game finished, with obviously the game plan are going to build off that, Chris, I got to give the momentum to Oklahoma. Baylor had their chance. I couldn't pick Baylor. I'm not saying they wouldn't necessarily cover the spread, because 9 is a decent amount for a Oklahoma defense. But I think Oklahoma wins the game unless Lincoln Riley decides to run the ball with Jalen Hurts like 38 damn times again. That's only a downfall. If Oklahoma gets up like they've been doing a lot, can they actually hold on to the game? Because most of their close wins, Chris, have been being up, choking it away. The Baylor one was the one time this year where they flipped the script. They got done early and came back, didn't have time to choke it away. So if Baylor does get up in the first half, does it turn into the Jalen Hurts running the ball show and then let Baylor back in the game? I think that might be interesting, because maybe we'll see the flip-flop of teams trailing and coming back from behind, like compared to unlike the first game.
Yeah, and they've been getting Brooks a little bit more involved in the running game, Oklahoma has, rather than just relying on Hurts. But even in that game, when you look back, that Brewer, he was the leading rusher by a mile for them too, which is kind of crazy. He had 17 carries, 65 yards. The next person had 3 for 42, and then you had like 3 one-carry guys. So they obviously are going to need to – they can't do the quick strike. When you think of Baylor, you think of quick strike. Not even this team, but, when they were good and great, it was quick strikes. Bam, bam. They would just go. And they can't do that. They can't do that, because they actually – time of possession, they actually 41 minutes and 11 seconds Oklahoma had that ball for. They doubled them up on rushing yards. And obviously it played into it. Like, I think I liked how Oklahoma actually stuck to the run even though they were down, so much. And they just kind of, I guess getting down so early helped them so they had enough time to come back. But obviously Oklahoma is just more experienced. Their players in general at closing the door. And I do think Oklahoma will win the game. But I still think this should be a pretty damn good game. I mean, Baylor has to have a chip on their shoulder, right? I mean, they still got to be but they got to feel pretty confident too. Now, if they get down kind of early, maybe they won't, and maybe the mental part will unravel on them. I don't know, but I don't know, man. I feel like this is going to be a pretty damn good game. What is the over-under? 64. I feel like they can go over that.
Yeah, as long as the teams don't have the hiccups like they did in the first game. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's going back and forth. I agree. I would bet the over if I took the over under in that game. I'd for sure go over, because I think Oklahoma's going to put up high 30s. So you're just asking Baylor's quarterback Brewer to, do enough. And not that he's awful, but he's not great. That's the one other big advantage, is just that Oklahoma's got a much better quarterback.
Yeah, been there, done that.
And if you look at Baylor's year, their defense was the main reason they won a ton of games. Brewer made a couple of plays, but Baylor's known for a defense and their quarterback would step up in the fourth quarter. But
Right.
a lot of times the reason the games from the fourth quarter close was because the offense never could pull away from anyone. So, sadly, I think those are the two games you talked about are the two close ones. I think, sadly, I don't think Virginia has a chance against Clemson. I don't see it happening. And
Can they get under the spread at 28.5? Dude, I've been burnt by this damn against the spread section. I have like honorable mentions, and for
Sure.
like 3 straight weeks, I kept thinking Clemson's finally not going to beat the shit out of someone. They're only beat them by 27 rather than 33 or whatever. And each and every time they burnt me, dude. So I'm off that now. But I'm wondering, this will be the time that we don't say it when Virginia will lose by 24 instead of 28.5. What do you think about Wisconsin? Can they sneak under that 16.5? Is Ohio State? I mean, Ohio State is due for like not just a slow start, but a kind of a clumsy game at some point, right? I mean, especially to a team that it was actually, well, you know what? It was competitive, and then they blew them out when they played in the regular season. So maybe that'll be on the radar. Like, hey guys, you saw the first half; it wasn't a gimme. But I just feel like they're due not to come out in juggernaut mode at some point.
Maybe. They beat them so bad that first game. I don't know. I'm not sure if Wisconsin's defense can hang in and do enough against Ohio State. I'm not saying that Ohio State can't have a dominant win by 14 points, but I would stay away from backing them bad just because what that first game I believe was 35-7 or 35-10.
Yeah, it
Ohio
was
State
3-0 until like the last part of the first half. Then it was 10-0 at half, and then they just completely ran them out of the stadium.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously Ohio State didn't miss a beat last week against Michigan. I think them and LSU are the two best teams in the country this year, and I don't see LSU or Ohio State losing. I think
I'm not talking about losing.
No,
I'm talking about sneaking under the 16.5. I'm not talking about losing.
I wouldn't touch that game. If I had to, I would bet Ohio State minus the 16.5. I just think they're too fine-tuned, and just it's hard to kind of forget how that first game went. I know it was at Ohio State, obviously, and factors happened, but it would be tough for me to back Wisconsin there.
They do seem like they're on a mission.
Yeah,
that Cincinnati Memphis rematch though, got some stats here on the rematch back-to-back weeks. You know, They obviously, Memphis, and this is going to be in Memphis, isn't it? I believe it's at.
Yeah, it's at Memphis again.
34-24 last week, and it's the third time Memphis years in a row that they've won the AAC. Pretty good conference. Since 2007, only 3 teams have played each other in back-to-back games, and the one that lost, back-to-back games with the DOG going 3-0 against the spread. So the underdog going against the spread. So since 2007, only 3 teams have played each other in back-to-back games with the underdog going 3-0 against the spread. And I remember Fresno State last year and Boise State, the only loss I think they had was the Boise State, but it wasn't back-to-back. I actually think it was separated by 2 weeks, not a week, now that I think about it. That was for the Mountain West. Man, like I said, they snuck under the spread last week, and now it's a little shrunk to 9 instead of 11.5. I don't know, a home game though? Yeah, Memphis is probably going to win.
Yeah, again, I can't stand Memphis' quarterback. I took Memphis first half, and they get up 17-3, and then all of a sudden their offense goes just into just garbage mode, and they had a 1st and goal, and the quarterback was throwing passes to people in the stands, and I can't imagine how good Memphis would be if their quarterback wasn't average. But they still have enough tools. Their defense is not great, but it's not Oklahoma bad.
They got a track team for skill players, basically.
They do, and their defense does a good job at the line of scrimmage, which makes up for maybe a lack of skill. Like they maybe don't have like the 5-star players, but they don't get owned at the line of scrimmage, which does enough for them. And they do have enough plays where, as you said, if they seem to run back a kick every game. I swear, it's either a punt return or kick return. They have a track star field. Their special teams are always great. And even if quarterback is average, all it takes is a wide receiver running a go route, and he flicks the ball over there, and the dude's gone. So I like Memphis to win again. Now the spread again, I'm with that. That's dangerous. I mean, those numbers are there for a reason. I know it's only 3. It's a small sample size, but the mental mindset is still there as athletes. Okay, if you're Memphis, you just beat them. We got this again. No matter what a coach says, even Norvell is going to say, guys, we can't take them easy. But as a player, dude, we just beat you. Let's do it again. The motivational angle should be higher for, Cincinnati coming into this game, obviously. And the reason it's huge, especially for Memphis, is that right now they're the number 1 ranked.
The highest ranked. Yep.
They're the highest ranked non-Power 5.
Yep.
So that gives you a huge bowl game, which is massive for recruiting, making noise for your school, just kind of putting you on that big spectrum, having a chance to play maybe an SEC or a Big Ten team. So it's a massive game for whoever to win, just to get that extra street cred, publicity, and everything else involved in it. So,
and Boise State is right on their heels at 11-1 as well at 19. And if Memphis loses, that could get Boise State up in there.
Exactly. Yeah, there's just so much on the line for that extra publicity, which those teams really need.
It's huge.
A regular football fan knows Memphis, but to the recruiting, to the kids, to maybe to the national media that doesn't see Memphis often, it's a big game. So on top of obviously wanting to win your conference and playing a repeat matchup, it's huge just for the future of your program. But I think Memphis wins. I would stay away from the spread again, but I would lean towards Memphis for a victory because that home field advantage, Chris. I know my man Lane Kiffin, who's playing Saturday as well.
I was going to say, dude, it's an hour and 7 minutes into this thing. When the hell is Lane Kiffin coming up? But we got it in.
He's going for his second conference title in 3 years. But the advantage of Lane playing at FAU, of Memphis playing at home, Appalachian State playing the Raging Cajuns, like that home field is so
right.
Big. Yeah, now
the Raging Cajuns got a chance, dude. They're gonna win, dude. I don't give a shit about the Appalachians. They're gonna win, dude. It's a great place to get lost in. But other than that, Raging Cajuns, baby. No, you're right, though. Not to, lessen what you were saying. It's a good point. It's actually we were talking about that if we did add a 5 or 6, or if they really want to money grab 7 or 8, to have those games at home for the fans. So they don't have to travel anymore, and it just makes more sense. One thing we don't have to worry about is Bama this year, though. They got dropped 7 spots, dude. They're down to 12. I just realized that. 7 spots they got beat down. So that's nice, dude. So we don't have to worry about the argument there.
Yeah, and I really don't see how, besides Oklahoma, Baylor, or Utah, I don't think anyone else is in the conversation.
What about Wisconsin if they beat Ohio State?
But can Wisconsin hop?
They have an
Baylor?
Illinois loss too. They have an Illinois loss.
That one's bad. Because I just don't think Wisconsin could hop Oklahoma or Baylor. So I think the Final Four is essentially set based on what happens. If Georgia wins, they're obviously in. LSU ain't going anywhere. So if Georgia wins, they're in. If Utah wins and Georgia loses, Utah's in. And if they both lose, it goes to Oklahoma and Baylor. And if anything happened besides that, the committee's going to have a firestorm. They're going to have some explaining to do, Chris. And I guess so. We're pretty much looking at, and God, this would be kind of. I guess we're looking probably at the fact there would be a Clemson LSU matchup, and then Ohio State's going to play whoever gets that 4 seed. I guess to maybe wrap up my last point for the show, and I get that it's not going to change, but yeah, as you said earlier, who should be the number one seed right now, in your opinion, if you're on the committee? I mean, I know it's Ohio State, and I doubt that's going to change at all, because if they both win their conferences, you can't flip them.
If they beat Georgia, that's a better win than Wisconsin, though, so they may bump up.
Do you think that could happen?
Yeah, I do. Well, first of all, I think LSU should be number one.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you.
But at the same time, I do think actually if they win that game, they'll get bumped up. I do, because I think they respect Georgia more than they respect the Badgers.
And in fairness, man, that's a hell of a difference of playing a potentially a Utah or a Baylor compared to playing Clemson.
A big difference.
You're right. That 1 to 2 seed.
And it disrespected Clemson this year too, because everybody's talking shit about them, because they haven't played anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I get that LSU and Ohio State are both in, but playing a Clemson or playing a Utah or a Oklahoma or a Baylor, that's a huge difference. You're probably favored against other teams. Against Clemson, I mean, Ohio State versus Clemson on neutral field, I'm guessing. Shit, I don't even know who'd be favored.
No matter what that game is, whoever plays Clemson, that's gonna be a bomb ass game, dude.
Yeah, agreed. Because and if Clemson, I guess hypothetically Clemson could lose. If Clemson loses, hell, I don't know. I bet they actually probably would drop because it'd be such a bad loss. But I don't see Clemson loss happening. That'd make for a fun podcast next week, but I don't see it occurring.
Yeah. And by the way, just on some local Gopher stuff, PJ Fleck for his 2020 class just got a wide receiver that not just LSU but Miami wanted as well. So there you go. We're still going up, motherfuckers. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, dude. Just got a wide receiver that LSU and Miami was at the top of his list. Gotta love it. Gotta love me some PJ Fleck.
Keep rolling the boat. Keep rolling the boat.
And I'm going to hit him with over the head with an oar if he leaves, too. Why don't you get us out of here before I start to have some kind of criminal charge on me? Got a terroristic threat or something like that. They'll charge me with something.
We didn't get to talk about Mia Khalifa today because UTEP isn't involved in the game, unfortunately. There's no UTEP minor talk with Mia Khalifa. But on that note, Utah-Oregon is Friday. Everything else is Saturday. I got some basketball stuff going on Saturday, so I'm going to have to utilize my DVR.
It's on Fox. It's not on the Pac-12 network, right?
Thank God. Yes.
That'd be a basketball.
I'm going to have to turn off my phone, rack up the DVR, and then get home Saturday and just enjoy all the games. It'll be a fun slate, a bunch of good games. I know the point spreads are a little bit scary, but hopefully we'll get an upset mixed in there, and hopefully one of the main conference games is close. We're not seeing it, but you never know. Nonetheless, when we do our next show, the Final Four will be set up, the bowl games will be set up. Then it gets into fun times, and if you're like me and you like to gamble, the bowl games are the perfect time of the year on Christmas to gamble, and then just see stuff that God only knows who creates it to cause you to lose a bet. Anyways. The boys are out. Have another safe weekend with your family. Enjoy the holidays that are around this time. And we'll be back next week. Peace.